بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة. Testing. As soon as I went live, it said there were technical difficulties, but I'm back. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we are going to try to start the week off right with some easy Arabic lessons, inshallah. The first thing we like to do is introduce ourselves, where we're from. So if you don't mind in the chat, letting us know where you are joining us from, which country, which city. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. So basically today we have two different options. We can focus on Arabic letters or we can focus on Arabic vocabulary and grammar. So we will shortly do a vote. But first, we have brothers and sisters joining us from India, London, UK, Maryland, Luton, Bangladesh, South America, Uruguay, mashallah, the UAE, London, New York, Jordan, Allahumma barak. I love it. I love, how we all come together from all over the world. It's such a beautiful thing. It's such a ni'mah. May Allah guide us to make the most of these opportunities. Somaliland, South Africa, UK, Germany, Sudan. Jazakumullah khair. So many people. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Basically, we just want to, keep the lessons going regarding Arabic. It's really important for us to learn Arabic, and in order for us to understand it, we have to be consistent in our lessons. So basically, there are two different ways we can go today. We have Institute Arabic Volume 1, Reading Arabic Letters. This is for absolute beginners. If you don't know how to read Arabic yet, then this is the book for you. But then if you do know how to read, then there's Institute Arabic Volume 2, Vocabulary and Grammar. So we're going to take a vote, inshallah. We are going to take a vote whether or not you guys want to do Volume 1 or Volume 2. So if you are at a level where you want to focus on the letters, you want to focus on the Arabic letters, then press 1 in the chat. And please just vote one time. So press 1 in the chat if you want to focus on the letters today. Or if you already know how to read and you want to focus on vocabulary and grammar, then press 2 in the chat. So we're just going to do it based on the vote. Right now, it looks like Volume 2 is winning. Yeah, it looks like 2 is... Allahumma barak. That's great in that it means most of you already know how to read. Alhamdulillah. So unfortunately, for those who don't know how to read, you can still follow along, inshallah, but you're going to want to focus on... You're going to focus on this one, Volume 1. So if you check the links in the description, I already have lessons, video lessons, where I go through this entire book. You can download the PDF instantly if you just go to courses.ilmstitute.com. You can also order the hard copy from Amazon. Just check the links in the description. But based on the vote, we're going to focus on 2 today. All right, so here's the next question. Should we start from the beginning of Volume 2? Press 1 if you want to start from the beginning of Volume 2. Press 2 if you were here for the previous lesson and you want to start from, we were on like lesson 8 or something like that. I just want to see who is a recurring viewer in terms of you were here last time. All right, thank you for the super chat and for the good deeds. Now I'm gonna block you. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. It's good. Even if you were here last time, it's good to review from the beginning. So That's what we will do today, inshallah. And again, check the links in the description if you want a hard copy of this book, or if you want to have instant access to all of the video lessons. They are available. All right. So here's the table of contents. So basically, with this course, we want to, if the only prerequisite for this course is that you know how to read. If you know how to read, then this is step-by-step, very easy lessons, inshallah. So we've said the introduction, learn Arabic in 3 steps. Just to summarize, first you want to learn the letters. That's volume 1. Once you learn the letters, those letters come together to form words, and then those words come together to form sentences. So in this series, we focus on those letters coming together to form words. So we memorize a lot of vocabulary, and then we focus on those words, those vocabulary words coming together to form sentences, and we learn rules of grammar. So the only prerequisite is that you already know how to read. But even if you don't know how to read, doesn't mean that you can't necessarily understand and benefit, because I'm still going to be explaining things in English, and you can probably still understand, you can follow along, inshallah. All right. Lesson 1, types of words. Types of words. And another thing, these lessons are short, and then we do a lot of question and answers, because that's how you really get to test to see if you really understood it, if you memorized it. So this one is actually, it's words and sentences. Okay, it's words and sentences. So rather than just have a course where all you're doing is just memorizing a bunch of words, in each lesson, you will, for the most part, memorize words, and then we'll take those words and we'll form sentences. And volume 3 is already in progress, inshallah. All right, so we were off to a rough start with, subhanAllah, somebody right off the bat just has to, So anyways, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. All right, let's move on. All right, lesson 1, types of words. There are 3 types of words in the Arabic language. Every single Arabic word will fall under one of the following 3 categories. So in this lesson, this is one of the longer lessons in this book. However, you're laying that foundation. Once you master this lesson, then inshallah you'll know the different types of words, the 3 different categories of words in Arabic, and that is such an important lesson to solidify. So type number 1 is the fi'l. It's the fi'l, and we differentiate the 3 different types of words from each other by discussing whether or not it has a complete meaning and a relation to time. So those are the 2 things that you are going to want to keep in mind when it comes to differentiating each type of word from the other. So the fi'l has both a complete meaning and a relation to time. Okay, it has a complete meaning and a relation to time. Relation to time meaning it has a past, present, or future tense. So for example, verbs. He wrote is somebody doing an action in the past. So it has a past tense, and it has a complete meaning, obviously. He wrote. She is reading. This has a present tense. It's something happening right now. She is reading right now. They will travel has a future tense. Okay, it means something will happen in the future. And also commands are under this category of fi'l. Somebody tells you read, sit, eat. Okay, this is the first type of word, the first category of word. So who can define the fi'l for me? Who can define the fi'l for me? I'm going to cover the definition. Who is paying attention? Who can answer the word? Or who can answer the question? What is a fi'l? How would you define a fi'l? Action words, it's true. But more specifically, it has to do with a complete meaning and a relation to time. Who can define the fi'l for me? A fi'l has both what? It's a verb, has a complete meaning and a relation to time. More specifically, a complete meaning and a relation to time. Okay. So for example, he blank. He did something in the past. ذهب, he went. خرج, he exited. كتب, he wrote. درس, he studied. These are all examples of the fi'l. They all have a complete meaning and a relation to time. And what you would want to do when you're taking this course, if you have this book, is you would want to memorize every single word that we go over in every lesson. So you would want to memorize all of these. And then we give you some examples of she blank. Okay, these are he went, he exited, he wrote. This is going to be she went, she exited, she wrote. What's the difference? All that we did was we added a ta at the end with a sukoon. ذهبت, she went. خرجت, she exited. This is also giving you an idea about how the fi'l works, how it goes from masculine past tense to feminine past tense. Then also we have first person. I. What if you want to say I went, I exited? Then what you do is you still have that ta marbuta. You add that ta marbuta at the end, but you put a dhamma above the ta and you put a sukoon above the letter before it. So dhahabtu, I went. Kharajtu, I exited. And you can compare. Once you go through and you sit down and you read them, you memorize them, then you'll have some fi'ls in your library that you understand, that you know, that you've memorized, and you can also see how they are different from one another. You're starting to get a sense of how the fi'l functions, how you change things a little bit to change the meaning slightly. Type 2 is the ism. Type 2 is the ism. The ism has only a complete meaning and no relation to time. Okay, the ism has only a complete meaning but no relation to time. So it's different from the fi'l because the fi'l has a complete meaning and a relation to time. The ism has a complete meaning with no relation to time. For example, nouns: student, boy, book, house. Adjectives: big, heavy, intelligent, new. Right? These have complete meanings, but there's no relation to time. There's no past, present, or future tense. All right, I'm going to cover up the answer. Who can define the ism? Who can define the ism? SubhanAllah, let me just block some people in the chat. It's really sad. We're trying to learn Arabic here and people are coming in here causing problems. All right. The ism has a complete meaning and no relation to time. Very good. Has a complete meaning and no relation to time. Yep. Has no relation to time, but also has a complete meaning. Complete meaning, no relation to time. Very good. Okay. So for example, we have names, right? Muhammadun, Aliyun, Khadijatu, Maryamu. These are all names. They have a complete meaning, but no relation to time. People: Mudarrisun, teacher. Talibun, student. Waladun, boy. Bintun, girl. These are people, and it has a complete meaning and no relation to time. Things: Qalamun, pen. Kitabun, book. Places: Masjidun, masjid or mosque. Suqun, market. Adjective: Kabirun, Qaribun, big, near. So you would want to memorize all of these. These are all examples of the ism. So now we know 2 of the 3 types of words. Now we're going to learn the third type, the harf. The harf. The harf has an incomplete meaning by itself. Okay, so you can see how they all are different from one another, depending on whether or not they have a complete meaning in a relation to time. The fi'l has both a complete meaning and a relation to time. The ism has a complete meaning with no relation to time, and the harf has an incomplete meaning by itself. So for example, prepositions: in, on, to, with, from. These are examples of the harf. You would need to put these words with another word, with an ism, for example, for it to actually make sense. In doesn't make sense by itself. It doesn't have a complete meaning by itself. In the masjid, okay, now it has a complete meaning. You have to put it with another word. So who can define the harf for me? Who can define the harf? If you check the links in the description, there are links to Amazon. You can purchase both of these. They're both on Amazon. And you can also, the other links are to the courses, the online courses, and you can download the PDF once you register, inshallah. A harf has an incomplete meaning by itself. Harf has an incomplete meaning by itself. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Yep, prepositions. And then we have some examples of the harf. Ila, which means to, ala, which means on, min, meaning from, fi, meaning in. So if you were taking this course, what you would want to do, maybe this would be the only lesson that you go over today. You would just focus on lesson 1. You would memorize the 3 different types of words, and then you would also memorize all of the vocabulary examples of each type of word. And that could be your job for the day. Maybe if you want to spend 2 days doing that, depending on how much time you have to invest in studying and memorizing and how long it takes you to solidify the lesson. It depends, but just want to give you an idea. We're going to breeze through it today because we're live and we're just, introducing everyone, and people are at different levels. But this is how this course has been designed. It has a short lesson, but you want to memorize everything within the lesson. And right after the lesson, we have the exercises. So let's go through the exercises. Fill in the blank with the correct answer. There are blank types of words in the Arabic language. There are blank types of words in the Arabic language. How many types of words are there? Three. Very good. 3. And now we're going to name each of the 3. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now we're going to name each of the 3, and we're also going to define it. The blank has only a complete meaning and no relation to time. So which one is it? Which one only has a complete meaning and no relation to time? What category of words is that one called? The ism. Excellent. The ism has only a complete meaning and no relation to time. Excellent. The blank has both a complete meaning and a relation to time, a past, present, or future tense. Which one is that? Which one has both a complete meaning and a relation to time? The fi'l. Excellent. The fi'l. So the ism has only a complete meaning and no relation to time. The fi'l has a complete meaning and a relation to time. And that leaves us with the blank having an incomplete meaning by itself. Which one is that? What do we call that one? The harf. Excellent. Allahumma barik. Very good. The harf. The harf. Very good. Now you know the 3 different categories of words, and you know the definitions, and there are examples here to memorize. So that's going to lay the foundation for volume 2. Now we're going to keep building. Every lesson we build upon the previous lesson. So you want to solidify this lesson very well. And we help you solidify that by testing you to see if you memorize the vocabulary. So obviously you would need time to memorize it. So we're going to skip this, but this is just to show you how the program works. Fill in the blank with the correct translation. The haba, he blank. What does that mean? What does the haba mean? He went. This is something that you would memorize, right? He went. And this helps you. This is really, of course, there are the videos on Institute Academy, and plus we're going over it here. But this is also designed for self-study if somebody is just, in between work or school or raising their children, whatever they have going on. This is something that you can do within the comfort of your home, inshallah, and test yourself, And then, so this is for the fi'l to see if you memorize the different fi'l vocabulary words. Then we test you to see if you memorize the different ism vocabulary words. And then we test you to see if you memorize the different harf vocabulary words. Now okay, this is a good one. Let's just practically, even if you didn't memorize the different vocabulary words, let's see if we can determine what category each one of these words falls under. So, kharaja. Kharaja means he exited. Kharaja means he exited. Would this be a fi'l, an ism, or a harf? Let me know in the chat. Would this be a fi'l, an ism, or a harf? Let me know in the chat. Jazakumullahu khairan, everyone, for the kind words. May Allah bless all of you and make this beneficial for all of us. The fi'l. Very good. Kharaja, he exited, would be a fi'l because it has a complete meaning and it has a relation to time. It has a past tense, right? Kharaja, he exited. He exited. It's something that happened in the past. Fi'l. What about fi? Fi means in. Fi means in. Would it be a fi'l, an ism, or a harf? Fi. It means in. Fi would be a harf. Excellent. So I got more people to block. They just can't let us learn Arabic in peace. Like, subhanAllah, what type of person would come in here and interrupt a bunch of Muslims learning Arabic? It's hard to imagine. All right, harf. Yes, fi is a harf. Has an incomplete meaning on its own. Very good. The harf. Harf. All right. Let's try one more. Masjidun. Masjid or mosque. It's a place, masjid. So I'm going to go to the masjid. Masjidun, mosque. Is that a fi'l, an ism, or a harf? Masjid is an ism. Very good. It has a complete meaning, but no relation to time, no past, present, or future tense. Very good. Those are the three types of words. You solidify that in your mind, and you have a very good start, inshallah. You know the three categories of words in Arabic. Every single word in Arabic is going to fall under the category of fi'l, ism, or harf. So now that you know that, you have a very strong foundation, mashallah. Lesson 2, definite and indefinite ism. Okay, so remember the ism has a complete meaning and no relation to time. In the previous lesson, you would have memorized all of the isms that we gave you, and then we can start analyzing some of the isms and learning some grammatical rules, inshallah. So by default, an ism will end with dhamma. Okay, dhamma is one of the three harakat. Okay, there's three different types of haraka that are written above a letter, above or below a letter. And this is something that you learn when you learn how to read. This is something that you would learn in volume 1. And here we're learning that not only do the harakas relate or tell you how to pronounce a word, but they also have a grammatical significance when it comes to like how they end. So by default, an ism will end with dhamma. It will end with dhamma written above the last letter of the word. Depending on the situation, the dhamma is either written once like this or twice, which is called tanween, like this. Let me zoom in. I know some people might. Yeah, so depending on the situation, the dhamma is either going to be written once like this or twice, which is called tanween, like this or like this. Okay, and this is also something that we learn in, I think, the second lesson of volume 1. We learn about the harakat and we learn about tanween. So if a word ends with two of the same haraka, the dhamma can be written like this. Literally two dhammas written like this, or a dhamma with like a squiggle at the end of it. This is called tanween. Okay. And this is going to be significant when it comes to this lesson because it's going to differentiate between an ism that is indefinite or definite. Indefinite is when an ism when an ism is indefinite, that means it is not referring to something specific. Okay, when an ism is indefinite, that means it is not referring to something specific. For example, a book isn't referring to a particular book. It's not referring to a specific book. If I say hand me a book, you can hand me any book. Okay, not one specific book. When an ism is indefinite, okay, when it's not talking about something specific, it ends with tenween. Okay, this is when it does end with tenween. So for example, a book, we would say kitabun with tenween. Kitabun. Okay, so if I say hand me kitabun, hand me a book, you can hand me any book, and this would be indefinite, and we can tell the kitab is indefinite because it ends with tenween. All right, then we have definite. When an ism is definite, that means it is referring to something specific. For example, the book. The book is referring to a particular book. If I say hand me the book, I'm not saying you can hand me any book. I'm saying hand me the specific book I'm referring to. Hand me the book, right? So that's the difference between indefinite and definite. Now we said that you can tell that an ism is indefinite because it ends with tenween. How can we tell when it's definite? Well, when an ism is definite, instead of ending with tenween, instead of ending with two dhammas, it's only going to end with one. Okay, simple enough, right? It's only going to end with one, and it's also going to start with the letters alif, lam. Okay, so what's the difference? In indefinite, it's going to end with tenween. When it's definite, it's going to not take tenween, and it's going to have alif, lam in the beginning. So for example, the book would be al-kitabu. Al-kitabu, the book. Okay, so here it becomes very, very clear once you start comparing, right? Baytun, a house. Al-baytu, the house. Babun, a door. Al-babu, the door. Okay, now you have all these examples where we show you indefinite, definite, indefinite, definite. So it becomes very clear, and you can see that for the indefinite, there's no alif lam and it has tenween. And for the definite, it has the alif lam and it does not have tenween. It just has one dhamma, right? Simple enough. It might start off confusing when you're just reading through the directions and you're introduced to it for the first time, but once you see the examples, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy, right? Inshallah, especially if you take your time and you memorize everything, it's pretty clear, inshallah. And that's the lesson. That's it. That's lesson 2. So let's test to see if we memorized and understood everything. Fill in the blank with the correct answer. By default, an ism will end with which haraka? This is important. By default, an ism will end with which haraka? There's the dhamma, the fatha, and the kasra. And again, this is something that you learn when you learn how to read. So in volume 1, this is from the very first lessons. By default, an ism is going to end with dhamma. Excellent. Dhamma. By default, an ism will end with dhamma. Excellent. It's very, very important. It's very important because, like I said, we build upon every lesson in future lessons. So it's very significant for you to memorize this because in the future it's going to be important. All right. An indefinite ism ends with how many dhammas? Does it end with 1 or 2? So by default, an ism ends with dhamma, but an indefinite ism ends with how many? 1 or 2? Jazakumullah khair. As for the Islamic school, we are still fundraising, and we are still in talks with trying to purchase the school building. Inshallah, there will be an update soon, but at the moment we're just fundraising. So Jazakumullah khairan, everyone, and trust me, this is it's a long-term goal, and we're gonna make sure that we do whatever we can, inshallah, to make sure that we do establish a school. But it takes time. 2, very good. So an indefinite ism ends with 2 dhammas. 2. And when an ism ends with 2 of the same haraka, what is that called? What do we call it when it ends with two dhammas? That is called tanween. Tanween. When it ends with two of the same haraka, whether it's a dhamma, a fatha, or a kasra, but for this example, we're talking about the dhamma. This is called tanween. Yeah, I'm also getting distracted by the trolling, so may Allah may Allah protect us. May Allah protect us. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, so basically, in lesson 1, we went over the 3 different types of words. In lesson 2, we went over the ism when it is definite or indefinite. Okay, it's indefinite when it ends with tanween or two of the same haraka. And it specifically, the dhamma is what it ends with by default. And then it's definite when it begins with alif lam and it doesn't take tanween. And then we gave a bunch of examples here. All right, a definite ism ends with how many dhammas? So we said that by default, an ism will end with dhamma. An indefinite ism ends with 2 dhammas. When an ism ends with 2 of the same haraka, like 2 dhammas, it's called tanween. And a definite ism ends with how many? How many does an indefinite, how many harakas does a definite ism end with? 1. Very good. 1 dhamma. All right. And then one last thing. What 2 letters do we add to the beginning of the definite ism? So the definite ism, it takes 1 dhamma, but it also begins with alif lam. Alif lam. Very good. Very good. So here, this is just to test 2 things. To test if you memorize the vocabulary and also to test if you can differentiate between the definite and the definite and indefinite. So you'd want to memorize the vocabulary and then you'd want to do this exercise. Let's try this, right? Write the correct haraka at the end of each word. So here we have qalam, which means a pen. This is an ism. It has a complete meaning and no relation to time. It's a thing, qalam, a pen. How would it end? Okay, how would it end? Number 1, it's going to end with which haraka by default? Take it a step at a time. By default, it's going to end with which haraka? The dhamma, the fatha, or the kasra? Which one? Qalam. By default, because it's an ism, it's going to end with dhamma. Now the question is it going to end with tanween or not? Is it going to end with 1 dhamma or 2 dhammas? Right? When it ends with 2, that's called tanween. Qalam, is it going to end with 1 or 2? It's indefinite, right? We can tell that it's indefinite, which is another question we could ask. A pen is indefinite. If it was the pen, it would be definite. But because it says a pen, it's indefinite. So does it take tanween? Yes, it takes tanween. Very good. So it's going to end with 2 dhammas. Very good. What about this? Al-miftah. Al-miftah. This means the key. The key. By default, it's going to end with dhamma. And this is definite. It says the key. So how is this going to end? Is it going to end with 1 dhamma or 2 dhammas? It's going to end with 1 dhamma. Very good. And also you can tell it's definite because of you can tell it's definite because the 1 dhamma will go at the end. And we can tell because of that alif lam in the beginning. Very good. Excellent. All right, so now that we learned about definite and indefinite, now we're learning a lesson that has to do with the definite. Now we're going to learn a lesson that has to do with when a word begins with that definite alif lam, because there's a certain rule that you need to know if you're going to be able to read it properly. And this is why, again, this is why the lessons are designed the way that they are. They build upon one another. And naturally, what we want to do is if we teach you something related to, for example, the ism being definite, then we want to teach you other rules related to that, so that you're not confused. So that's why we were very, methodical in how we approached teaching these different lessons. So lesson 3, sun and moon letters. Sun and moon letters refer to the first letter of a word following the definite alif lam. So for example, the first letter after the definite alif lam in the word al-baytu would be the ba, right? So here we have the definite alif lam, and then after the definite alif lam, we have that red ba. We made it red to highlight it. Okay, so when we're talking about sun and moon letters, we are referring to the first letter that comes after that definite alif lam. Okay, if the definite alif lam is followed by a moon letter, that means you will pronounce the letter lam with a sukoon as usual. So that little circle, that's called a sukoon, which you learn in volume 1 when you learn how to read. So there's no new rule to learn regarding moon letters. You'll just read the word as normal. Okay, so really this lesson is preparing you to learn about sun letters because there is a new rule regarding them. However, this is a category of moon letters. So all of these are considered moon letters. And, when they come after the definite alif lam, you're just going to read the word as normal. Okay, so for example, al-himaru, the donkey, you have the definite alif lam. It ends with one dhamma because it's definite. And which letter comes after the definite alif lam? It's the letter ha. The letter ha. And here we're learning that the letter ha is a moon letter, meaning what? Meaning that you do pronounce the lam. You pronounce the lam, and you can tell because there's a sukoon above it. And a trick for you to remember this is that the sukoon, it looks like a moon. So you could say that, that's an obvious way to tell that a moon letter is coming after it. Al-himaru, al-khubzu, al-ainu. So you see, we are pronouncing the lam. However, when it comes to the sun letters, if the definite alif lam is followed by a sun letter, that means you will not pronounce the letter lam. Instead, you will pronounce the sun letter with a shadda. And the shadda is another symbol that we learn in volume 1 when you're learning how to read. So this is why it was important to learn this, because once you learn that when an ism is definite, it begins with the definite alif lam, and then you also understand that there are letters that are sun letters, meaning when it begins with the alif lam and then a sun letter comes, you don't pronounce the alif lam. This is obviously something that you need to learn so that you can learn, or so that you can read properly and you understand what's going on. So for example, we have the definite alif lam here, and then we have the letter ta coming after it, which is a sun letter. Meaning what? Meaning that we're not going to pronounce the lam. We're not going to say al-tajiru. We're going to say at-tajiru. We are not going to pronounce the lam, and you can tell because there's a shadda above the ta. That's an easy way to understand it, right? At-tajiru, at-thawbu, ad-diku, right? We're not pronouncing that lam. So that's the difference between the sun letters and the moon letters. The moon letters, they're very easy because, you have that sukoon, it looks like a moon, and you just read it normally. However, the sun letters, they have a shadda above the sun, above them when they come after that alif lam, and then you are not going to pronounce the lam. Lesson 3 exercises. Fill in the blank with the correct answer. If the definite alif lam is followed by a blank letter, the lam is pronounced with a sukoon. Which one is that? Is that the moon or the sun letter? It is the moon. Moon. Yeah, so if the definite alif lam is followed by a moon letter, that means the lam is pronounced with a sukoon. And again, it's easy to recognize because the sukoon looks like a moon, right? If the definite alif lam is followed by a blank letter, the lam is not pronounced. Obviously, that's going to be the sun, right? So the lam is not pronounced, and the sun letter, if all the harakat are written, it's going to have. All right. I froze. Okay, I'm back. I'm back, inshallah. Having some technical difficulties today. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Let me check my All right. Bismillah. Okay. I don't know why the internet is seems like the internet isn't as strong right now. Write S if it begins with the sun letter, or M if it begins with the moon letter. All right, so write an S if it begins with a sun letter, or an M if it begins with a moon letter. Okay, so how about Ashamsu? Ashamsu. Is this a sun letter or a moon letter? So we have the definite alif, lam. We can also tell it's definite because when it begins with a definite alif, lam, it ends with one dhamma instead of two. It does not take tanween. And we see that this is the letter here that we're referring to, the sheen, and that would be a sun letter. That would be a sun letter. Very good. And we can tell it's a sun letter because it's a sun letter, but also we can tell because it has that shadda above it. Okay, so we're not going to pronounce the lam. We're just going to say ashamsu. We're not going to say el shamsu. We're going to say ashamsu. We're going to skip that lam. We're not going to pronounce it. What about al-himaru? Al-himaru. We have the definite alif lam. So we're going to focus on this letter that comes after the definite alif lam. Is this a sun letter or a moon letter? Al-himaru. Al-himaru. Is this a sun letter or a moon letter? This would be a moon letter. You can tell because of the sukun on the lam, meaning we do pronounce the lam. Very good. So that's the first 3 lessons. So first, lesson 1, we learned the 3 types of words. Lesson 2, we learned about definite and indefinite. In lesson 3, we learned about the sun and moon letters because that relates to the definite alif lam. All right. Lesson 4, this is an easy lesson, inshallah. And this is also important because we already mentioned about tanween, right? So this is going to teach us a lesson about tanween. And something that you want to keep in mind when you're learning Arabic is that there are general rules, and that's what you want to start with, are general rules. And then as you progress, then you'll start learning specific exceptions to different rules, and it'll get more complex. But you want to take it a step at a time, learn the general rules. All right, so male versus female names. A general rule when it comes to names is that male names take tanween while female names do not. Simple enough, right? Male names, they take tanween, meaning they take 2 of the same haraka at the end. By default, it's going to be the dhamma. Whereas the female names, we're saying they don't take tanween, right? So we have Muhammadun with tanween, Sa'idun with tanween. Why? Why does it take tanween? Because they're male names. But then we have Khadijatu, Safiyatu, Aishatu. They don't take tanween. Why? Because they're female names. Simple enough, right? It's the entire lesson. Write the correct haraka at the end of each ism. Khalid. Khalid. This is a male name. So is this going, how many dhammas is this going to take? By default, it's going to take dhamma. Is it going to take 1 or 2? Is Khalid going to take 1 or 2 dhammas? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone joining us. It is going to take tanween, meaning it's going to take 2 dhammas. For those asking about the schedule for the class, there's no real schedule. If you check the links in the description, there are videos teaching both of these courses already, volume 1 and 2. All of the videos are pre-recorded and you can access the PDF. Just join Institute Academy. You have access to all those things, inshallah. And why does Khalid take tanween? Why does it take 2 dhammas? Because it's a male name. That's what we're learning in this lesson. What about Fatima? Fatima. Is Fatima going to take 1 dhamma or 2 dhammas? Fatima. Is Fatima going to take 1 dhamma or 2 dhammas? Fatima is going to take 1 dhamma because it is a female name. Very good. Simple enough, right? Khalidun with tanween because it's a male name. Fatima too without tanween because it's a female name. Very good, mashallah. Lesson 5. Ism after harf jar. Now, of course, again, before you get to lesson 5, you would want to make sure that you memorize all the vocabulary of the previous lessons, meaning you have a whole arsenal of isms you memorized, a whole arsenal of harfs that you memorized, and that's how you're going to then put them into sentences to understand. But we're breezing through it today. So let's see. Arabic grammar focuses on how the haraka at the end of a word changes depending on its role in a sentence. Each harf we memorized in lesson 1 is from a special category of harf known as harf jar. If an ism comes directly after a harf jar, then that ism will end with a kasra instead of a dhamma, which is the default. All right, so I know we're going fast if this is new to anyone. Okay, so one way for you to know if it's a male or a female, I mean, if you just memorize the vocabulary, then you'll know whether it's a male or female. So these are just male names. I mean, generally speaking, you'd know that Muhammad, for example, is a male name. Ali is a male name. But for the sake of, like, we're not trying to trick anyone with any of these lessons. We want to teach you everything very clearly, and then, build upon what we've taught you. So what you would do is if you memorize the male names and you memorize the female names, then you'll know because you memorized. And I'm not going to bring any names of men or women without teaching them to you first. So just a side note, but good question. Okay, so we're building upon many different things. So number 1, we already learned in lesson 1 the difference between an ism and a harf. We also memorized vocabulary of isms and harfs. The specific harfs that we memorized in lesson 1, we're saying that they are from a special category called harf jar, where if an ism comes after it, then that ism is going to end with a kasra. Now, this is also related to the fact that we learned by default an ism is going to end with dhamma. So now we're showing you an exception to the rule. So by default, an ism will end with dhamma. However, if it comes after a harf jar, it's going to end with kasra. Right? So you see how it's all building upon one after another. All the lessons, so if this is too fast, then we're admittedly breezing through it. So you'd want to take it slower. But if you take it slowly, then all of this will make sense. And if you keep doing it over and over again, it's going to be second nature, inshallah. So, but examples really help clarify. So, for example, al-baytu means the house. Al-baytu. By default, the ism is ending with a dhamma because nothing is making it take something else. However, if we put a harf jar before al-baytu, what happens to that dhamma? It's going to turn into a kasra. It's going to become min al-bayti. Min al-bayti. Okay, so al-baytu, the house, becomes min al-bayti, from the house. And also you can see how the harf, we said it has an incomplete meaning by itself, but we need to put it with something else. So when we put it with something else like an ism, then it starts to make sense. From the house, min al-bayti. Okay, so al-baytu min al-bayti. Al-maktabu ala al-maktabi. Al-masjidu an al-masjidi. Right? So all of those dhammas, they turn into a kasra. Why? Because it's coming after the harf jar. Simple, right? Also, if it has tanween, Like these are all examples of the definite ism, but what if we look at it an indefinite ism like kitabun, a book, kitabun? You could say fi kitabin. Okay, it's still going to have tenween. It's still going to have two of the same haraka at the end. However, instead of having two dhammas, it's going to have two kesras. Why? Because it's coming after a harf jar. Okay, so inshallah, that's simple. All right, lesson 5. Now we're going to start reviewing. Like the more that you learn, the further along you get, the more you have to keep in mind. So it's very important for you to memorize, and understand the lessons thoroughly before moving on. But again, we're just breezing through because this is a live stream. Okay. So, and we're gonna test it. So kitab, a book, kitab. How should kitab end? First, we'll ask what haraka should it take, and then how many of that haraka should it take? That's the question. Kitab, a book. Which haraka should it end with, and how many of that haraka should it end with? Kitab, kitab. So which is it going to take? It's going to take dhamma by default, right? And it's going to take two dhammas because it's indefinite. Okay? So you see how there's a couple different things going on, right? So first of all, kitab, book, it's an ism. By default, the ism ends with dhamma. The indefinite ism ends with two dhammas, tenween, right? Very good. So it'd be kitabun, a book. What about fi al-matbakh? Fi al-matbakh. So highlighted in red is a harf. This is a harf. In is a harf. We're only writing the haraka at the end of the ism. So al-matbakh is the ism. Al-matbakh means the kitchen. So the question is, which haraka is it going to end with, and how many of that haraka is it going to end with? Fi al-matbakh. It's going to end with kesra, and how many? Two kesras. Wait, no, not two. One. Why is it going to end with one kesra? Why? Why does it end with one kesra? It's going to end with a kesra because it comes after a harf jar, but why only one? The other one ended with two. It ended with two of the same. It ended with tenween. Why is this one not taking tenween? Because it's definite. Excellent. It's definite. Because it's definite. Very good. Yep, and we can tell it's definite because of that alif lam in the beginning. Very good. Yes, very good. In the kitchen, right? So you see how you combine, you stay true to all of the different rules, right? So it's coming after a harf jar, so it takes kesra, and it takes one kesra because it's definite. You can tell because of the alif lam. Okay. Let's move on to let's see. Okay, here we start again. We start testing previous lessons. Like we are, this is the 5th lesson, right? Yeah, so we're testing you on the rules that you learned in lesson 5, but we're also testing you on what you learned in 4, 3, 2, 1. So write the correct haraka at the end of each ism and read the translation. So here we have Fatima fi al-matbakh. Fatima fi al-matbakh. Fatima is in the kitchen. Now, fi is a harf. It has an incomplete meaning by itself. It's also a harf jar because all the harfs that we learned so far, we said, are under that category of harf jar. So we're not going to worry about the haraka for the harf. We're going to look at the haraka for Fatima and al-matbakh because both of these are isms. Fatima, which haraka is it going to end with, and how many of that haraka is it going to end with? Fatima. Fatima is a female name. It's an ism, it's a female name. How many harakas is Fatima going to end with, and which haraka? Fatima is going to end with one dhamma. Very good. One dhamma. Why is it going to end with one dhamma? It's going to end with dhamma because that's the default. Okay, there's nothing making Fatima take a kasra or take a fatha, right? And we'll learn about whether or not it would ever take a kasra, for example. Anyway, so Fatima, by default, it's going to take a dhamma because it's an ism. There's nothing making it take something else. And it's going to take one dhamma because it's a female name. Very good. Fi is a harf. So it's Fatima too. It takes one dhamma by default, and one because it's a female name. Fi al-matbakh. What is al-matbakh going to end with? Which haraka and how many of that haraka? It's going to take a kasra, and it's going to take one kasra. Very good. It's going to take a kasra because it comes after what? It's going to take a kasra because it comes after what? It's going to take one kasra because it comes after a harf jar. Harf jar. And it's going to take one kasra instead of two because it's what? It's going to take one kasra instead of two because al-matbakh starts with that alif lam, meaning it is definite. Excellent. Very good. Very good. I know we're going through it very quickly, but this is how it builds one on another on another. Excellent. And then we want you to translate. Okay. So I think my camera, if my camera shuts off, it's because the battery died. I'm having a lot of technical difficulties today, alhamdulillah. Even though it is plugged into the outlet, it's still telling me the battery's low. So if it shuts off, that means the camera died, but we'll keep going until that happens. Inshallah, it won't. Lesson number 6, transitive and intransitive fi'l. So we already did a lesson. In lesson 1, we learned about the fi'l, the ism, and the harf. And then we started learning about specifics regarding the ism, specifics about the harf. Now we're going to learn a little bit about the fi'l. Remember the fi'l? Who can define fi'l for me? Who can remember? Yeah, the reason it's getting harder is because we're breezing right through them. So what you might want to do, if you join Institute Academy, if you order the book, do one lesson a day, one lesson a week, and just memorize everything. It depends on your level. But you want to memorize. The lessons are very short. Memorize all the vocabulary. Memorize all the definitions. Memorize the concept, and then move on to the next one. The book is about 48 pages. Yeah, it's 48 pages. It's 19 lessons, 3 unit exams. So the fi'l has a complete meaning and a relation to time. The fi'l has a complete meaning with a relation to time. Allahumma barak, you all are excellent students, mashallah. Has a complete meaning and a relation to time. Like a verb, for example. Past, present, future tense. Okay, so now we're going to be focusing on the fi'l. There's 2 categories of fi'l that we want to learn today. So, of course, we have the 3 categories of words, but then those, of course, are going to split off, right? They're going to split off into different categories within the category, okay? So the fi'l can be divided into 2 categories, the transitive and intransitive fi'l. Transitive is the first one we're going to start with. When a fi'l is transitive, this means it requires both a subject and an object. It requires a doer of the action and an object that the action is done to. Okay, so for example, The student broke the pen. Okay? Broke is what? It's a complete meaning related to time. It happened in the past. Okay? Broke. Broke is a transitive verb, and we can tell because it has a subject and an object. So the subject is the student. He's the doer of the action. Who broke the pen? The student broke the pen. The student did the action of breaking. And what was broken? The pen. The pen is the object. The student broke the pen. Broke is the transitive verb. The student is the doer of the action. The pen is the object of the action. The boy hit the dog. The boy is the doer of the action of hitting. Hit is the transitive verb. The dog is the object. It's what was hit. The girl washed the shirt, right? Pretty clear. So these are and here are some examples of the transitive fi'l. So you would, after you understand the concept that a transitive fi'l, it's a fi'l that requires a subject and an object, then you're going to memorize some examples, okay? Fataha, he opened. Daraba, he hit. Akala, he ate. Right? So fataha, for example. So you memorize all these, and then in future lessons, we're going to use them in examples, but you have to memorize the vocabulary first. So we say let's say the student opened the door, right? Opened, fataha. The student is the doer of the action, and the door is the object of the action, right? And opened is the transitive fi'l. So you want to memorize these. And then we have the intransitive. When a fi'l is intransitive, this means it only requires a subject. It only requires the doer of the action. For example, the man cried. The camel slept. The girl exited. All of these examples, they only have a subject. There's no object. The action isn't being done to something else, but rather it just has the subject. The man cried, the camel slept, the girl exited. And here we have some examples of that. Kharaja, he exited. Jalasa, he sat. Right? If we say he sat, then that's it. There's just a subject. Okay? To make something sit, that would be different. If he made someone else sit, then you'd have a subject and an object. But to say the student sat, that's it. There's just a subject, right? So then you'd memorize these vocabulary words. And of course, we're going to build upon this. That's why you're learning these things for a reason, which become apparent as you move forward. The two categories of fi'l we learned in lesson 6 were what? What were the two lessons we just learned? Jazakumullahu khairan, everyone, for the kind words in the comments. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah make it beneficial for all of us. May Allah accept from us. May Allah give us ikhlas. Make it easy for us to learn the language of His book and His Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. The two categories of fi'l that we just learned are the transitive and intransitive. Very good. When a fi'l is transitive, this means it requires both a subject, a doer of the action, and an object, what the action is done to. When a fi'l is intransitive, this means it only requires a subject. It only requires the doer of the action. So let's see if we understood the concept of transitive versus intransitive before moving forward. So the student slept. The student slept. Slept would be the verb. It would be the fi'l once we start getting into the Arabic, right? So is slept transitive or intransitive? The student slept. The student slept. Is this transitive or intransitive? Intransitive. Intransitive. Very good. It's intransitive because it only has a subject. Allahumma barak. Very good. It is intransitive. Yep, because you have the intransitive fi'l and you have the subject. That's it. What about the boy ate the bread? Ate is the fi'l. Ate is the verb. Is it transitive or intransitive? Ate would be transitive. Very good. Transitive because it has a subject, which is the boy. He's the doer of the act of eating. And the bread is the object. Excellent. Allahumma barak. MashaAllah. Transitive. Very good. Very good. Subject and an object. So then we would want you to translate, because if you're memorizing the vocabulary, then you can start translating. But because you didn't have time to memorize, we'll just keep it moving. And this is going to show you why we had to learn that previous lesson. You know, as we progress, we're just going to keep building. It's all going to come together, inshallah. Excuse me. Okay. Lesson 7. Action, fi'l, doer, fa'il, and object, maf'ul bih. Okay, so lesson 7. In previous lessons, we learned situations where the ism ends with dhamma or kasra. In this lesson, we will learn a situation where the ism ends with fatha. Okay? So we already learned about when it comes to the ism is going to end with dhamma by default. We learned that when an ism comes after a harf jar, it's going to end with kasra. We learned about when it takes tanween or not, depending on whether it's definite or indefinite, whether it's a male or female name. We learned all these things, Allahumma barak. Now we're going to learn a situation where the ism ends with a fatha, because we didn't learn that yet, right? And here we're going to be talking about what? The transitive verb. The object of a transitive verb will end with fatha. That's why we had to learn about the transitive and intransitive verb. Why? Because the object of a transitive fi'l is going to end with fatha. For example, kasara at-talibu al-qalama. The student broke the pen. The student, at-talibu, the student, this is the subject, the doer of the action. The fi'l, the transitive fi'l, is broke, kasara. And the pen, al-qalam, is the object. And because the pen is the object, it ends with a fatha. You understand? This also shows us how the order is different in Arabic. In English, we have the student, that we have the subject first, followed by the fi'l, and then we have the object. Whereas in Arabic, we have the fi'l first, then we have the subject, then we have the object. Okay, and we can tell which one is the subject and which one is the object because the object ends with the fatha. Okay, kasara at-talibu al-qalama. The student broke the pen. Okay, and here we have some examples. Akala Muhammadun al-khubza. Okay, akala is ate. That's the fi'l. That's the transitive fi'l. Muhammadun, he is the doer of the action, the doer of the fi'l. And it's going to, by default, end with dhamma. It's going to take tanween dhamma because it's a male name. And al-khubz is going to end with fatha because it's the object. The bread is what's being eaten. It's going to end with one fatha because it's definite. Alif lam. I know there's a lot to take in at once, but as you can see, all of the lessons, right, they all come together. First, we teach you the lesson in a very short, easy to understand way. And you can take your time with it. You can take a day. You can take a week trying to master one lesson. But then once we move on to the next lesson, all those previous rules, they start coming up, right? Until you analyze a sentence and there's all these different things going on. You got the transitive fi'l. You got the ism. You have the doer of the transitive fi'l. It's ending with dhamma by default. It's taking tanween dhamma. You have the object of the transitive fi'l. It has the definite alif lam, so it's ending with one. It's taking the fatha because it's the object, right? All of these things start coming together, but we teach it to you very simply, right? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullahu khairan for joining us. May Allah bless you. May Allah make it easy for all of us to learn Arabic. So, yeah, so this is just teaching you what? That the object of the transitive fi'l is going to take a fatha, right? Fataha Yasirun al-baba. Yasir opened the door. This is important to note. Notice how an ism ending with tanween fatha ends with a silent alif. Okay? Daraba al-waladu hajaran. So daraba is the transitive fi'l. It means hit. Okay, remember the fi'l, it has a complete meaning and a relation to time. This is hit, it's something that happened in the past. Al-waladu is the subject of the transitive fi'l. He's the doer of the action. By default, it ends with dhamma. It's an ism, means the boy. Has the definite alif lam, so it ends with one dhamma. And then hajaran is an ism. It means a stone. It's indefinite. Because it's indefinite, it's going to take tanween, and it's going to take tanween fatha because it's the object of the transitive fi'l. And what we're teaching you here is that when an ism ends with tanween fatha, there's this silent alif that's written at the end. So you just need to know that, because you might see that. You'll be like, why is there this alif there? It's because that's what you write when an ism ends with tanween fatha. Okay? All right, so let's do this example real quick. Daraba al-walad himar. The boy hit a donkey. Okay, daraba is the transitive fi'l. Al-walad is the subject. Himar is the object. So what are we going to write at the end of al-walad? Which haraka is it going to end with, and how many of that haraka? So when it comes to how to arrange sentences in Arabic, there's lots of different options. But right now we're going to stick to just the simplistic. We're going to take it one step at a time. But this is why it's important to know the grammar, which haraka something is supposed to take, because whatever order it comes in, if you rearrange the order, then you'll still know what is the subject, what is the object, because of the harakat. Inshallah. Wallahu a'lam. Al-walad is going to take one dhamma. Excellent. It's going to take one dhamma. It's going to end with dhamma because that's the default. And when it's the subject, we didn't learn that it's going to take something else. It's going to take one because it is definite. And then, so it's going to take one dhamma because it's definite, and it ends with dhamma by default. Himar. How is himar going to end? How is himar going to end? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us, brother. Daraba al-walad. Daraba al-waladu himar. Himar is going to be himaran. Tanween fatha. Tanween fatha. Why is it going to take? It's going to take tanween because it's indefinite. Okay, we learned that the indefinite ism takes tanween. And it's going to take tanween fatha because it's going to take tanween fatha because it's the object. Allahumma barak. Very good. MashaAllah. Yep. So you see how this is the eloquence of Arabic. MashaAllah. And we're just getting started. Oh, then you have the unit test. So this unit test, I think it's like 3 pages. It's going to test to see if you memorized everything from the previous 7 lessons. Okay. It's going to ask you questions to see if you memorized the concepts. It's going to ask you to write the correct haraka to see if you understood the different concepts that were taught. And it's going to ask you to define terms to make sure you memorize all the vocabulary. So this is about, I think we got to lesson 9 last time. Let's see if we can keep going, inshallah. All right. So again, I know we're breezing through it, right? I wouldn't expect anybody who doesn't have previous knowledge of the different lessons to be able to keep up with us to this extent. But I know some of you are already fluent in Arabic. Some of you have already, maybe you're intermediate. You've studied these things before. So perhaps it's going to be easier for you to keep up, inshallah. And for those of you who do know Arabic and you do know these things, one perspective could be, rather than, obviously it's a good review, but also you can consider teaching using this book to your children, to, at the masjid. That's another thing to keep in mind. So this is when we really start getting into grammar. And this is something that we start learning in like Medina Book 3, like the 3rd level. But I think it's very beneficial to actually start learning from, the 8th lesson. Yeah, so this lesson is being recorded. If you just subscribe to my channel, you go back, it'll be recorded, it'll be posted to my channel. Also, I have an entire course on Institute Academy. If you check the links in the description, courses.institute.com. If you register, you click my dashboard, then you will have access to the PDF and all of the pre-recorded lessons. I go over every single one of these lessons already. It's all pre-recorded. Barakallahu feek, mashallah. All right. Lesson number 8, changeable ism, mu'rab. Okay, changeable. We learned in previous lessons that an ism may end with dhamma, fatha, or kasra depending on its role in a sentence. So think about that. We said the ism by default, it ends with dhamma. When it's the object of a transitive fi'l, it ends with fatha. When it comes after a harf jar, it takes kasra. We learned all of these things, right? So what does this tell us? This tells us that the ism, it can change. Sometimes it can end with this, sometimes it can end with that, depending on what? Depending on its role in a sentence. In this lesson, we will learn what state an ism is said to be in relation to those endings. So this is an easier way to sort of identify the grammar that's happening in a sentence. Rather than saying, oh, it's ending with a fatha because this, that, or the third, you can just say that it's in a specific state. Okay? So this is called, and this is some more vocabulary we're going to have to memorize, but there is the state of marfu'. The state of marfu'. Okay, so the ism is said to be in a state of marfu' when it ends with dhamma. So kharaja at-talibu. The student exited. Okay, so here we're going to be focusing on this word here, at-talib, because we're going to show you how it can take different endings and what state it's said to be in when it takes those different endings. Okay, so we mentioned that by default, the ism is going to take dhamma, and we can say that that is it being in a state of marfu'. Okay? So when an ism ends with a dhamma, we can say that it's in a state of marfu'. Kharaja at-talibu. But then we have when it ends with a fatha. Okay? Daraba al-waladu at-taliba. The boy hit the student. Daraba al-waladu, the boy hit. Who did the boy hit? At-taliba. He hit the student. So the student is the object of the transitive fi'l. Therefore, it takes a fatha. And here we're learning that if it takes a fatha, we can say that it's in a state of mansub. We can say that it's in a state of mansub. And then we have, so that's the what? That's the fatha. We got the dhamma, the fatha, and then here we have the kasra, right? We said that when an ism comes after a harf jar, it takes kasra. ذهبت إلى الطالب. I went to the student. I went to the student. So it's taking a kasra because it comes after a harf jar. And when this ism is taking a kasra, we can say that it's in a state of majroor. It's in a state of majroor. So here we have at-talibu, at-taliba, and at-talibi. It's the same ism, but the ending is changing because of the role it's playing in the sentence. And here we're learning we need to memorize these words, these marfu', mansub, and majroor. We need to memorize those because it's in a state of marfu' when it ends with dhamma. It's in a state of mansub when it ends with fatha. And it's in a state of majroor when it ends with kasra. Notice how the student, at-talib, was able to end with dhamma, fatha, or kasra depending on its role in each sentence. This shows that this particular ism, at-talib, is changeable. It's mu'rab because the harakah changes to indicate its role in a sentence. Now, just to foreshadow, it's important to know if an ism is changeable, because there are certain isms that are not changeable. There are certain isms that the ending is not going to change. We're going to learn that in the next lesson. But first, we need to solidify this here. So, all right, here we go. When an ism is changeable, this means the ending harakah changes to indicate its role in a sentence. Okay? When an ism is changeable, this means that the ending harakah changes to indicate its role in a sentence. But here, I want to ask you guys this. I want to quiz you on this here. When an ism ends with blank, this indicates it is mansub. Which one means that it's mansub? When an ism ends with, is it dhamma, fatha, or kasra? When an ism ends with blank, this indicates it is mansub. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless all of you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your encouragement and your kind words amongst all the trolls and the hate. The fatha, very good. The fatha. The fatha. Okay, jazakumullah khair. Yes, so when an ism ends with a fatha, this indicates it's mansub. When an ism ends with blank, this indicates it's marfu'. So which one is it? Which haraka indicates that it's marfu'? Jazakumullah khair, jazakumullah khair. Dhamma, dhamma. When an ism ends with dhamma, this indicates that it is marfu'. Thus, when an ism ends with blank, this indicates it's majroor. When an ism ends with what? When an ism ends with kasra, this indicates it is majroor. Very good. So it's just to give you a review of what you just learned, right? Because it helps you recall it. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right. Let's put this to action. Write the state, marfu', mansub, or majroor of each read ism. Nama Muhammadun. Nama Muhammadun. Muhammad slept. So this is the ism. Nama, it means he slept, right? It's the masculine past tense slept. Nama, this is a fi'l. It has a complete meaning and a relation to time. The relation to time is the past tense. Muhammadun. Muhammadun is a male name. It's an ism. Okay, it's taking dhamma by default. It's the subject. And it's taking tanween because it's a male name. But what state is it in? Is it marfu', mansub, or majroor? Okay? It's ending with dhamma, tanween dhamma specifically, but it's ending with dhamma. And we learned that when an ism ends with dhamma, it's said to be in a state of marfu'. Marfu'. Excellent. Jazakillah khair, sister. Nice to have you. MashaAllah. Marfu'. Marfu'. Yes. What about kharaja at-tabibu min al-bayti? Kharaja is a fi'l. Exited. At-tabibu is the subject. He's the one exiting. And he's exiting min, this is a harf, from al-bayti, from the house. Okay? So al-bayti, this is the ism. We want to identify which state that it's in. We want to identify which state that it's in. We can see it ends with kasra. It's ending with the kasra because it comes after a harf jar. It's ending with one kasra because of the definite alif lam. But what state is it said to be in? Majroor. Excellent. Because we say that the ism, when it ends with the kasra, we say that is in a state of majroor. Majroor. What about this one? Akala Hamidun al-khubza. Al-khubza is the red ism. We want to identify what state it's in. Okay, akala, this is the fi'l, past tense fi'l. 8, Hamidun, he is the subject. He's the doer of the eating, the action of eating. Male name, by default, takes dhamma, takes tanween dhamma because it's a male name, as we learned. Al-khubza, it's taking fatha because it's the object of the transitive fi'l. It's the object. It's the thing being eaten. It's what the action is being done to. That's why it's ending with fatha, and it's ending with one because it's definite. It has that definite alif lam. And that means that it's in a state of mansub. Mansub. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you. May Allah give you some free time, and may Allah guide you to make the best use of such time. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. Jazakumullah khair. So we learned about Marfu', mansub, and majroor. All right. Did we get this far last time? Yeah, I think this is about as far as we got last time. Let's see if we can get even farther, inshallah. So last time we learned about the changeable ism, mu'rab. This time we're learning about the unchangeable ism, right? If there's going to be a changeable ism, we're setting you up to teach you about the unchangeable ism. Because that's what we're doing in Arabic. We're going to teach you all these foundational rules, and then we're going to get more and more specific as we go along. In the previous lesson, we learned that a category of ism called changeable, mu'rab, will change its final haraka according to the role that it's playing in a sentence. In this lesson, we learn a certain category of ism called unchangeable, mabni, that does not change the final haraka regardless of its role in a sentence. Right? So this is a category of ism. It's just is not going to change, right? We said sometimes it'll take dhamma, sometimes it'll take fatha, sometimes it'll take kasra. There are certain isms, they're always going to be written the same. It's never going to change, okay? Here are some examples, and these are important vocabulary words, okay? First, we're going to note that hada, right, is pronounced hada. It's written like hada, right? But it's pronounced hada, and this word is pronounced hadihi, okay? So hada and hadihi. Okay, that's how these words are pronounced. Hada means this, masculine. Hadihi means this, feminine. Hua means he or it, masculine. Hiya means she or it, feminine. And we'll learn more about masculine and feminine in the future. We already learned about masculine male names versus feminine female names. But there's, more to it than that we get to in future lessons. But just for now, these are examples of isms that are mabni. They are unchangeable. They don't change, okay? So for example, in the previous lesson, we showed you that what? We showed you that you have at-talibu, at-taliba, and at-talibi. You have the ending changing depending on its state. In this lesson, it's hada, hada, hada. It doesn't change. That's the point that we're making in this lesson. Okay? Note, when an ism is mabni, it is said to be in the place of marfu', mansub, or majrur. Okay, so while previously we said that if it's changeable, it's in a state of marfu', mansub, or majrur, here we're saying that it's in the place of marfu', mansub, or majrur. And again, we're breezing through this. So if this is too fast, then don't feel bad because we're admittedly going very fast. All right. So for example, kharaja hada, this exited. Daraba al-waladu hada, the boy hit this. Dhahabtu ila hada, I went to this. So here, right, if we put a talib there, the a talib would end with a dhamma by default. However, hada, it's just written the way that it is. It's not ending with a dhamma. Why? Because it's mabni. It's always going to be like this. But we would say that it's in the place of marfu'. Okay, it's in the place of marfu'. Here, hada is the object of a transitive fi'l, right? But it's going to be written the same because it's mabni. It's always going to be written the same. And because it never changes, we say that it's in the place of mansub. Okay? And here, hada, it's coming after a harf jar. Right? So we learned that an ism, when it comes after a harf jar, it should end with kesra. But this isn't ending with a kesra. Why? Because it's unchangeable. It's mabni. It's not going to change the way that it ends, ever. Okay? So we say that it's in the place of majrur. Inshallah, hopefully this is clear, but I know it might take some time, because first you have to solidify the previous lesson, and then you need to solidify this one. Because if you compare this to the previous one, it makes more sense, You see, it takes dhamma, fatha, kasra. But here, it's unchangeable. It doesn't change. It's written the same, okay? That's because this is unchangeable, right? Because if you just learn that the ism, for example, it takes a kasra after a harf jar, but then you see this here, ila hada, you're like, wait a second, this isn't following the rule. Yeah, because it's unchangeable. Notice how this hada did not change according to its role in each sentence. This shows that the ism hada is unchangeable. It's mabni because the ending haraka does not change to indicate its role in a sentence. Okay. All right, so when an ism is changeable, this means the ending haraka does change to indicate its role in a sentence. When an ism is unchangeable, mabni, this means the ending haraka does not change to indicate its role in a sentence. Now let's see if we can differentiate between the two. I'm going to need your help in the chat. Please help me. Please help me answer these. B, circle whether each read ism in the sentence is mu'rab or mabni. Okay? ذهب هذا. ذهب هذا. This went. Is هذا, is this mu'rab? Is it changeable or is it mabni, unchangeable? هذا, this word here. What's the answer? Is it mu'rab or mabni? Is it changeable or unchangeable? It's mabni. Very good. It's unchangeable. What about this one? What about this one? كسر سعيد المفتاح. المفتاح, here, the key, is it mu'rab or mabni? كسر is the fi'l, past tense fi'l. سعيد is the subject. And al-miftaha is the object. And because it's the object, it's taking a fatha. And because it's taking that fatha, right, you can say al-miftahu, al-miftaha, or al-miftahi, right, depending on his role in a sentence, which shows us that it's mu'rab. It's changeable, right? So that is basically the lesson. But then we want to prepare you for masculine and feminine, right? We mentioned that that's coming up. Read the following vocabulary words, then circle F if it's feminine or M if it's masculine. This is really testing if you memorize them. And I didn't really give you guys time to memorize them, but let's see if we can answer these properly because we want you to start thinking about masculine and feminine. هذا. هذا means this. Is it masculine or feminine? Is it masculine or feminine? Is هذا masculine or feminine? It's masculine. Very good. هي. هي means she or it. Obviously, it's feminine, right? She or it. So, masculine and feminine, part 10. Alhamdulillah, we're getting a bit further today. So it's been an hour and a half, mashallah. So you can see we're already on lesson 10. However, when you go through all of the exercises and you complete all the exercises and you memorize all the vocabulary, obviously it's going to take longer. But we are breezing through it. Masculine and feminine, part 1. Every ism in the Arabic language is either masculine or feminine. Okay? Keep that in mind. Every ism in the Arabic language is either masculine or feminine. In English, we don't have that. We don't have masculine and feminine and all that, right? Masculine forms of words need to be used for the masculine gender, and feminine forms of words need to be used for the feminine gender. So you need to know the gender because you need to be consistent. If something's masculine, you need to use the proper masculine terms. If something's feminine, you need to use the proper feminine terms. So, for example, we're going to start using those previous vocabulary words that we learned that were mabni and that were either masculine or feminine. So if we say, هذا محمد, okay, my camera died, so let me just, sorry, we can move to this, inshallah. All right. Can you all hear me? Inshallah. Camera died, but we can keep it moving, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, okay. Okay, where were we? Okay, where were we? Sorry. Alhamdulillah. Okay, هذا محمد هو من الهندي. Okay, هذا محمد. So Muhammad is a masculine name, right? Muhammad, we're referring to a man or we're referring to a boy, a male. So since we're saying this is Muhammad, we need to use the masculine form of this. In the previous lesson, we learned that there's a feminine and a masculine form of this. If we're referring to Muhammad because he's a male, we need to use the masculine form. We need to say هذا محمد. We also learned the difference between he and she, right? Muhammad is a male. We need to say he. He is from India. And we can compare that here when we're referring to a female. هذه عائشة هي من الهند, right? This is Aisha. If we're going to refer to Aisha, this is a female name. So we need to use the feminine form of this, right? We're going to say she is from India, right? We're referring to a female. She is from India. Hiya. Okay? So this is just showing you that there's masculine and feminine. Every ism in the Arabic language is either masculine or feminine. Masculine forms of words need to be used for the masculine gender, and feminine forms of words need to be used for the feminine gender. When an ism ends with a ta marbuta, okay, a ta marbuta, this is the ta marbuta. This is usually an easy way to know that it's feminine. Okay, when an ism ends with the ta marbuta, this is usually an easy way to know that it's feminine. Nouns and adjectives may also be made feminine by adding a ta marbuta at the end. All right? So for example, note when adding a ta marbuta at the end, the letter before it takes a fatha. So here, when you start looking at examples, it becomes easier, right? When you explain something, it might be sound confusing. Once you look at examples, it's easy, inshallah. Muslimun, right? This means Muslim, of course. Alhamdulillah for Islam. Muslimun, right? This is the masculine form of it. If we want to make it the feminine form, what do? We add a fatha on the last letter and add a ta marbuta, right? So Muslimun becomes Muslimatun, right? That's why you hear people say Muslim or Muslima. The reason we're pronouncing like the tanween and everything is because we're focusing on grammar. But when you just talk normally, you'll say Muslim, Muslima, Muslim, Muslima, right? Muslimun, Muslimatun, right? Sadiqun, Sadiqatun. You see that we are just adding, we're making it, we're taking the masculine, we're turning it feminine. Taking the masculine, turning it feminine. Walidun, Walidatun. Father, mother. Muhandisun, engineer. Muhandisatun, female engineer. All we do is we add that ta marbuta at the end to make it feminine. Okay? We could do the same thing with adjectives. Kabirun, big. Kabiratun, big for the feminine. Qaribun, near, masculine. Qaribatun, near for the feminine. So what do we do? What do we do? We just add the ta marbuta, right? The ta marbuta is a pretty clear, easy way to make something feminine or to tell if something's feminine, okay? And of course, these are just general concepts that we're learning to begin with. So let's try this out. Turn each sentence feminine by filling in the blanks with the feminine version. Huwa Muslimun. He is a Muslim. Huwa Muslimun. Okay, so we already learned the female version of huwa and we learned the female version of Muslim. So what are they? How would we take huwa Muslimun, he is a Muslim, and how would we say she is a Muslim? How would we say that? Excellent. Excellent. Hiya Muslimatun. Excellent. Very good. Hiya Muslimatun. All right. So that's about, we're talking about, all right. Right? Because huwa means he. Hiya means she. Muslimun means Muslim, male. Muslimatun means Muslim female. Huwa muslimun becomes hiya muslimatun, right? Hada jadidun. This is new. This is new, talking about something masculine. Hada jadidun. This is new. How would we say this is new for something feminine? We have to change hada to the feminine, and we have to change jadidun to the feminine. What would that be? It would be هذه جديدة. Very good. هذه جديدة, right? The feminine version of هذا is هذه. And for جديد, we're going to add that ta marbuta at the end. It's going to become جديدة. هذه جديدة. Okay? So this just has some more, examples for you to change the masculine to the feminine. Then we have masculine and feminine part 2. Gender is not limited to people in the Arabic language. Okay, it's not limited to people. We're taking it a step at a time. Previously, we're talking, it's easy to understand, right? Okay, Fatima is a female. That's feminine, easy to understand. However, it's not limited to people. Okay, so for example, the following words are considered feminine. Sayyaratun, car. Haqibatun, bag. Darajatun, bicycle. All of these different words here. Thallajatun, fridge. All of these. Shajaratun, tree. They are all considered feminine, even though they're not males and females. They're not like people, right? It's a car, bag, bicycle. However, as you can see, the ta marbuta is a clear sign that an ism is feminine. All of these end with ta marbuta, right? So it's easy, you can tell, right? Even though you're not going to look at a car and say, oh, that's a female, but because it ends with the ta marbuta, you can tell, right? However, again, you learn general principles and then you learn some of the exceptions. However, some male names also end with ta marbuta. Okay, there's some male names that end with ta marbuta, like Hamza, right? Talha, Muawiyah, Osama. These all are male names, and they end with a ta marbuta, so they're not feminine. Okay, right? You see, you learn the general principles, and then there's going to be some exceptions. And I know I'm giving it to you all at once very quickly. I mean, we've been, an hour, almost an hour and 45 minutes. We're at the 11th lesson. Okay, we're more than halfway through this entire book. Okay, so don't get overwhelmed. Don't get overwhelmed. We're going through it too fast. But it's important, this is how you learn. You learn general principles, and then you start learning some of the exceptions, okay? But it's important to point that out, because if you come across, Hamza, you're like, oh, that ends with a ta marbuta. You might be, no, yes, it ends with a ta marbuta, but it's still a male name, okay? And there are special rules related to them that we'll learn in the future as well, inshallah. All right. Circle the grammatically correct sentence and then translate below. All right. هذا سيارة. هذا السيارة. هذه سيارة. Which one is correct? Which one of these three is correct? هذا سيارة. هذا السيارة. هذه سيارة. Which one is correct? The third one, هذه سيارة. هذه سيارة. So why is the first one wrong? Why is the first one wrong? You can. So this is the correct one. What's the difference between هذه سيارة and هذا سيارة? The difference obviously is هذا, right? You have hada here and you have hadihi here. Why is hada incorrect? Why is hada incorrect to use with sayyaratun? Because hada is the ta marbuta, right? Which indicates that it's feminine, right? And hada is the masculine, right? So sayyaratun is feminine, so we need to use hadihi because hadihi is the feminine version of this, right? This is a car. Hadihi sayyaratun. What about this one? Huwa madrasatun, hiya madrasatun, hada madrasatun. Huwa madrasatun, hiya madrasatun, hada madrasatun. Which one is correct? Yes, very good. It is the second one. It's the second one, right? So hada. Why is hada incorrect here? Hada madrasatun. Why is this one incorrect here? Because hada is used for the masculine and madrasatun is feminine, right? Check that ta marbuta, right? Huwa means he or it for the masculine, but madrasatun is feminine. So hiya, and this shows you how hiya can be used for she or it, right? It would be she if we're referring to like a female person, but it's going to be it when we're referring to school, right? Hiya madrasatun. All right, let's keep breezing through. All right, this might be the last one. I don't know if we can keep going. This might be the last one. All right. How's everyone feeling? Should we call it a day? Is this too much? Should we keep going? Stretch a little bit. We already ran out the camera battery, but we're keeping it pushing, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless all of you. Jazakumullah khair. All right. Yeah, so, if you order the book, it's like, oh, where's the camera? Here's the camera. If you order the book, then you can write in the book, right? I made it like 8.5 by 11, so it's like a piece of paper you can write. Writing definitely helps. Writing, reading, speaking, all the different senses, it all helps, right? All right, sorry, I just had to block someone. All right. Lesson 12. Inshallah, the people who come here to hate and to slander and to cause issues, may Allah guide them. Hopefully they benefit, they learn something, inshallah. All right. Lesson number 12, adjectives, descriptions. The adjective in Arabic comes after what it's describing, unlike English, where the adjective comes before what it's describing. Also, the adjective must be the same as what it's describing in terms of being definite or indefinite, male or female, and marfu', mansub, or majroor. Okay, this is a lot. I keep thinking the camera's still over here. This is a lot to take in, okay? We're building upon each lesson. Okay, we're going all the way back to, every lesson is actually relevant here, but, we're talking about definite and indefinite. We're talking about male and female. We're talking about marfu', mansub, majroor. All right? And what we're saying here is that when it comes to the adjective must be the same as what it's describing in terms of being definite, indefinite, male, female, marfu', mansub, or majroor. Okay, also we're saying that in Arabic, the adjective comes after what it's describing. All right, so it takes time. It takes time because we're used to the same when we were talking about the fi'l earlier, about the fi'l coming first, right? In English, we say, the boy hit the dog, right? But in Arabic, you'll say hit the boy, the dog, right? So, it takes time to sort of start thinking in Arabic. All right, so here we give an example of each, okay? Notice in the following examples how the adjective will agree with what it's describing in each category. Kitabun qadimun, an old book. Kitabun qadimun, an old book. Okay, so here we have definite or indefinite. So in both of these examples, so we have kitabun is what's being described, right? A book. We want to describe a book as being old. So qadim is the word that we learned as an adjective that means old. And we're going to make it indefinite because kitabun is indefinite. Okay, kitabun qadimun, an old book. But what if kitab is definite? Then we add the alif lam and we take away the tanween. Al-kitabu, the book. We want to say the old book. So qadim, we're also going to add that alif lam and we're going to take away the tanween. So you see, qadim followed kitab. Kitabun qadimun, al-kitabu al-qadimu. An old book, the old book. It's also going to agree with what it's describing in terms of its gender. Okay? Waladun saghirun, a small boy. What if we want to say a small girl? Bintun saghirun. So bint, this is a vocabulary word. It means girl. Okay? And obviously this is referring to a female, right? Bintun saghiratun. We're going to add that ta marbuta. We're going to take saghir and we're going to add a ta marbuta to make it feminine. Waladun saghirun, a small boy. Bintun saghiratun, a small girl. But we said that it's not only people that can be masculine or feminine, but even things. Qalamun jadidun, a new pen. Sayyaratun jadidatun, a new car. So jadid means new, and when we're describing something masculine, we'll just leave it like this. But if we're describing something feminine, we need to add that ta marbuta and make it feminine. Okay, so it's going to agree, and obviously it's also agreeing with it being definite or indefinite, but we're just focusing on the gender in that example, and then the state. Okay, marfu', mansub, and majrur. Hada baytun kabirun. This is a big house. Okay, so baytun is what we are describing here. Baytun, and this is masculine. It's also, but we're focusing on the state, right? So it is marfu', right? It's ending with dhamma. Baytun kabirun. Okay, but what if bayt is the object of a transitive fi'l? Then we know that it's going to take fatha, right? Wajada Muhammadun baytan kabiran. So here it says Muhammad found a big house. So Muhammad is the subject. He's the one, he's the doer of finding. And the house is what he found. It's the object. Because the house is the object, it's going to take fatha. And because we're describing the house as being big, the adjective is going to also take the fatha. It's going to follow it in that. Okay? هذا بيت كبير وجد محمد بيتا كبيرا and هو في بيت كبير. Here, bait is coming after a harf jar, so it's taking kasra, and therefore the adjective is also going to take the kasra, right? So it agrees whether it's definite or indefinite. So you can also see in each one of these, it took tanween. It's going to agree male or female. All of these are male. It's all masculine. And then it also agrees it's marfu', mansub, and majroor. I hope that made sense. Yeah, sorry, there's no specific time for the classes, but if you check the links in the description, you can purchase the book, and you can also get access to Institute Academy. Once you register, you click my dashboard, and all of these classes have been pre-recorded. I already have pre-recorded classes where I go through every lesson, and you can download the PDF. Okay, so, and then we learn some more vocabulary words. We learn some more vocabulary words. Okay, I think I'm going to call it a day. I don't know if I can keep going. It's kind of a lot. It's a lot to take in. Yeah, so it's called Institute Academy. Let me yeah, this is the website, courses.ilmstitute.com. If you go to this website, the links are in the description. You go to this website, you register. Once you're registered, you click My Dashboard. After you're logged in and registered, you click My Dashboard. You have access to this entire course, and you have access to, it's like 20 other courses. So you'll instantly get access to the PDF, and then you'll have access to all of the pre-recorded lessons. So you can go through it at your own pace. So this course is for those who already know how to read. If you don't know how to read, there's an Arabic letters course, which is, it's similar. It's the same sort of method of teaching, except it's focusing on letters rather than words and grammar. And there's many other courses as well about like Aqidah. There are other more advanced Arabic courses. There's a Telegram group for tutoring with Muhammad James. So, but I think this is a lot to go through. You can order the book. The links are in the description. So if you check the description, there are Amazon links. And also, once you register on the website, you can the links are also there, I think. But you can the PDF is for like the students who are registered. But if you go to Amazon.com and you type in Sajid Lipum, then these books will come up, inshallah. So right now we have, someone asked if there's a part 4. We have here it is. Part 1, that's Arabic letters. You're going to learn how to read. If you're like a new Muslim, non-Arab, you've never studied Arabic before, this is for you. This is like ground zero. You haven't studied Arabic at all. This is going to teach you how to read. Once you know how to read, we have volume 2, and that's what we were going over today. This is going to take those letters you learned. They're going to come together to form words. Those words are going to come together to form sentences. It's $19.99 a month. It's like $17.99 a month if you get the annual purchase. But if you can't afford it, then just fill out the financial aid form. There's a financial aid link. Click that, fill out the form, inshallah. And inshallah, there's going to be a lot more. This is, of course, this is like Arabic. I'm already working on volume 3, I meant to mention. I already have I think 5 lessons for volume 3. I just need to start recording them. And then once I've recorded so many lessons and I've compiled enough lessons, then I'll publish volume 3. And the more of you that register and get involved in the Telegram group, the more it motivates me to finish, the more feedback I can get from you all, and you all help the process of publishing these books. I mean, all of these, like this was published, this came together because I was just teaching at the Islamic school. I was teaching kids how to read, and I was learning from them, and I was seeing how they were learning. And then I just put it together and published it. Same with this. Once they knew how to read, I started teaching them some grammar, and it turned into this. So inshallah, you all can help with volume 3 by joining and being active in the Telegram group. And Jazakallah khairan, everyone, for the kind words and the support. It's very nice. May Allah grant you all the best of both worlds. I also am going to teach other things as well, not just Arabic, but the same method. The same way that I teach Arabic, I try to give short lessons with exercises, clear, prioritizing, building one lesson to the next. I want to do the same thing with other subjects as well, other Islamic studies classes. So it's just a matter of time, and everyone's support, helps us move forward, because it takes a lot of time, energy, resources. But and the more support and the more activity we get from students, the more participation, it helps move things along. You can join the Telegram group once you register at Institute Academy. You click My Dashboard, and one of the modules is going to be for the Telegram group. So there's 2 different Telegram groups. There's one Telegram group for the like announcements. So every time like a new lesson is posted or a new course is posted, I post that in the announcements. But then there is 2 other Telegram groups. One is for mentorship, where Muhammad James, he talks about, he helps people in terms of their seeking knowledge, what books to study, how to go about it. And then there's an Arabic group where Muhammad James is also in there, and we can answer specific questions. And you can live stream within Telegram itself as well. So, but the more people that join, the more people that sign up and register, the more the more resources that we have. Everyone who supports, whether it be through Patreon, through the YouTube membership, through registering at Institute Academy, all of these things help us, in terms of hiring teachers and publishing books and all these different things. And the more people that participate, the more it encourages us to not only make the classes, but it also helps us know what's working, what's not working, because you give us feedback. So some of the most beneficial feedback I've gotten is from other students who say, "Oh, this sort of confused me," or "This worked for me," and then I can cater to the students. Alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khairan, everyone, for your kind words. May Allah accept from us. MashaAllah, 2 hours. 2 hours we live stream today. So, we don't have to do 2 hours. If you guys get these books, if you register for the course and you just spend maybe 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, then, as long as you do it every day, that can be better than, doing like a 2-hour live stream and, or wearing yourself out. So, again, just you can check the links in the description. There is basically 2 different options. The Amazon links are for purchasing physical copies. And, depending on if you have like Amazon Prime, then inshallah you can get it in like maybe 2 days, hopefully. And if you want the PDF version, and you want the videos to go along with it, you have instant access to all the videos. Every lesson has a video going through it. And that's for Institute Academy members, along with the Telegram group. Jazakumullahu khairan, everyone. If you join late, you can rewind to the beginning, inshallah. This should be posted to my channel. You can go back and watch it. And jazakumullahu khairan, everyone, for your participation. May Allah accept from us. And I'll try to go live more, just to encourage all of us. The live streams, there seems to be something special about the live streams, So I'll try to do this more often. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.